The four C's of fantasy world building. These are based on Mark J.P. Wolf's textbook on world building, which I highly recommend if you've got a few weeks to kill and are really serious about this subject. The four C's form a chain that keeps the audiences engaged. Each detail that you put into the story is a link in this chain, and you can strain them, but if you break them, that breaks the sense of immersion that audiences feel when they're in your world and reminds them that this is, in fact, a fantasy world. So you can strain them, don't break them, and by knowing what they are, you have a better chance of not doing so. They are creative, which is how much the world deviates from the real world, as in how large of the change your fantasy conceit is and how often they occur. The complete is the sense that the world exists outside of the story that it's supporting. That means that there is a history that begins before the story. It will continue on after the story, unless the story ends, of course, because of the end of the world. And there are other places unexplored in the story. These are all the details that you add to your world to make it feel real. But you can't add all the details of a world. So this is what Wolf refers to as the illusion of completeness, which are the hints that the world exists outside of the current story. Consistent refers to how well your world adheres to its own internal logic as well as the rules of the real world. Tolkien pointed out that we use our knowledge of the primary world, which is the real world, to judge the authenticity of the secondary world. This means that you have to, anything that is not under the auspices of a fantasy conceit, as in a change to the primary world itself, then it has to abide by the rules of the real world. Compelling is the fourth component and is how much your world interests the audience. It maintains audience engagement. This might seem like it's creative, but it is actually the wish fulfillment and fun and what the audience is here in your world for. So Harry Potter, on the other hand, isn't exceptionally creative, complete, or consistent. There's a lot of inconsistencies, but it is compelling. It hits all the notes that people want for their wish fulfillment and childhood fantasies, which is why it's one of the four links. If you get bored, then you're going to drop out of the story. The four C's work together to keep the audience immersed, but they can also work against each other. So for instance, if you add a whole bunch of details to make your world feel complete, then it's going to be harder to keep all those details consistent. The more deviations that you have to the world and the bigger they are, the harder it is for the audience to keep track of them and the less compelling they can become, which is one of the reasons a lot of authors work with tropes that are proven and tried and true. So let's keep all the four C's in mind as we're working and try to keep them in balance to keep the world fascinating for audiences everywhere.